All right, so we're on to part 2, and I kind of already started this one. Again, I rewrote a couple of the numbers so that you could read them a little bit better. In this problem, it tells us that the two angles given here are complementary, and so we want to find the measure of each angle. And so since I know they're complementary, I know they have to add up to 90 degrees. And so at that point, we can, just combine those like terms together, and then we have an equation that we can solve for x. So we should end up with x as 17. And the question is find the measure of each angle. So x is not the measure of the angle. We have to take 17 and plug it in for x in each of those. So we would say the measurement, we use m for measure, of angle LMN is going to be, when we plug in 17 here, we end up with 56 degrees. And then the measurement of angle UVW is going to be 34 degrees when we plug in 17 there. So careful when you read the question, because sometimes they might ask you just to solve for x, and then other times they might ask you to actually solve for the angle measure. So you have to plug it in at that point. And like I said, to abbreviate that a little bit, in case you've never seen that notation, M stands for measurement, and of course the angle symbol. And then generally when we name an angle, we name it by 3 letters because we have to include the vertex in the middle. And so that's just a common way to name an angle, in case you're not familiar with it. Okay, so moving to the back, we basically just have a graphic organizer that just kind of outlines all the different possibilities for a pair of angles. And so it's just kind of a summary of everything we just went over on the previous video. So I kind of will let you go over that yourself, but it is a very nice way to put it all together. I think it's a nice graphic organizer. So you can kind of review that there. Now, next we just have some practice problems. So identifying each pair of angles, whether they're complementary, supplementary, linear, vertical, or adjacent. We can also use the graphic organizer if you need to have a little help. So keep in mind also that some may have more than one answer, okay? So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and try 1 through 6. So pause the video, try to do those first. And then when you unpause the video, you can see the answers to check and see if you did them correctly, okay? So I will pause mine also so I can get those written in, all right? So just a second here. So I'm hoping that you can hear me. In this problem, you just want to go through and check your answers there. So complementary, vertical, supplementary. These could be supplementary because they form a straight line, so they have to add up to 180. You could also say they're a linear pair. You could say they were adjacent also, but a linear pair is actually a little more appropriate because linear pair includes that they're adjacent to each other. So that would be a better answer. Here, these angles are adjacent, and then these two add up to 90, so they're complementary. So just check those, okay? And then we've got some algebra connections. So a lot of times with geometry, there's a reason you took algebra before geometry, because we use it. So here we have some examples where we're applying our algebra knowledge along with our geometry knowledge. So in these examples, we want to think about solving those equations. The first example, we have an angle measure that is 5 times the measure of its supplement. Now, we know supplementary angles have to add up to 180. So let's think about how we would set up this equation. So let's say x represents our supplement angle. So there's our supplement, whatever that may be. And the supplement has to be, the other angle has to be 5 times the supplement. So let's say 5x would represent the angle, or the other angle. I'll just say angle though. So if we want to find the angle and its supplement, I would take x plus the 5x, and they have to add up to 180. And then I would just solve from there. So x would be 30, because we would combine those like terms to get 6x and divide by 6. That would give us 30. That represents the supplementary angle. And then we have to find the other angle. So the other angle would have to be 150 degrees. So I could say 5x equals 150. And let's go ahead and put our degree there, because we're talking about an angle measure. So there are our two solutions for the two angles, 30 degrees and 150 degrees. Now with 2 and 3, they are telling us the angles are either supplementary or complementary. And so just using a little bit of algebra, combining like terms there. So if we know these are supplementary, let's combine those like terms real quick. So we would have 10x minus 20, and that has to equal 180. So from that point, we can add the 20 and divide by 10. So we end up with x is 20. And then from that point, we can plug that in, because we have to find both angles. So they actually want us to find the measurement of each angle. So we would take 20 then and plug it in for x in each one. So I would list them out. So the measurement of angle ABD, even if we don't have a picture, we can still solve for those angle measures. So ABD is going to be 72 degrees when we plug in 20. And then we have the measurement of angle BDE. And again, we plug in 20, so we get a measurement of 108 degrees. And they are supplementary to each other, so we know we're probably on the right track. All right. Now, the last problem here, the only difference here is it says they are complementary. So again, we would combine the like terms together. So we would have 8y minus 6, and this time it's going to equal 90, because they're complementary. So we would solve that equation for y. You should end up with y is 12. And again, we would need to take that and plug it in to find the angle measures. So the measurement of angle ABD in this case, when we plug in 12, is going to be 61 degrees. And the measurement of angle BDX is going to end up being 29 degrees. And again, when you add these together, they equal 90. So you know you're probably on the right track there as well. So I'm just going to mark those off to show those are my answers, my final answers, and they match our definitions, so we're good to go. Okay, so next in your pink booklet, just using mine here as a reference after those notes, you have an angle pair relationships practice worksheet. And I know it seems kind of long, but a lot of these questions are just identifying what type of angle pair relationship it is, and those usually don't take too long. There is a back page, so just filling those out. Try to diagram correctly, like use correct notation. If it's an angle, use angle notation, things like that. And so there's a front and a back. So go ahead and complete that and be ready to move on tomorrow, okay? And we are done for part 2. Have a good day.